So today we have on board Mr. Jeffrey Hirsch, President and CEO of Stars, and Mr. Rohit Jain, who is the Managing Director of Lionsgate South Asia and Networks Emerging Markets Asia. So a very warm welcome to you both. So I would like to start with the name itself, Lionsgate Play. So I have seen that in other countries it Stars. So why is it Lionsgate Play in Asia? Is that a strategic move because we already have Stars Network in here? So is that why the name is so?
First and foremost, we looked at the marketplace and saw the appeal of the Lionsgate brand and the Lionsgate movies, coupled with it being a crowded market with Star in the marketplace. And we made a decision that for consumer awareness and for strength of the brand that we would go with Lionsgate Play.
So you've launched in India almost a year ago. So how do you define the Indian market when it comes to OTT platforms, both new and existing?
So Ria, it's been a great 1 year for us. We launched about a year back. We still find India in very early stages of growth as far as streaming is concerned. We are roughly about 3-year-old industry.
Right.
And if you look at in terms of breakout streamers, we arguably have 3 or 4 on SVOD and maybe two, 3 on AVOD. So I think for the size of our population, for the number of people who are using either mobile internet or broadband, the opportunity is phenomenal. We do think there is tremendous room for more premium networks to come in. We've had fantastic 1 year. Within a year we are already reaching out to almost our audiences are now almost in 1,000+ cities in India. Which is something that we're has taken us by surprise. Just the strength of the content. In the traditional theatrical world, you typically fail to reach that level of depth, and streaming is allowing us to do that. And so we're seeing some fantastic growth. But I think there's many years of growth ahead of us as far as just number of platforms and the audience size is concerned.
Right. So, but the timing coincided with the pandemic launched last year in December in India. And it was a time where OTT platforms here were witnessing a boom. Everyone was turning to OTTs. The movies were streaming on OTT. So was that a strategic move to launch at that time, or were you planning it beforehand?
No, this was very much a fast forwarded. I think we launched, by the way, B2B in the market about 2 years back. I certainly think COVID has fast forwarded the entire digital evolution across the board, whether it's streaming, ed tech, e-commerce, you pick up any segment. I think digital world in general has got fast forwarded. It certainly pushed us to start thinking a little more aggressive about the region in particular. So we've certainly, I think, fast forwarded some of our plans. If you look at the kind of originals that we're doing, the investments that we're making in content, the fact that in this year we've already premiered more than 50 titles, within, between series and movies put together, we've almost done more than 50 premieres this year. So I certainly think, just the last 2-3 years of fast forwarding of digital world that's happened because of unfortunate reasons has, I think, made a lot of business plans for, in general, entertainment, I think, fast forwarded by many years.
Right. So if not for the pandemic, you would have waited a few months more, maybe?
I don't think we would have waited more, actually. I think we probably would have had more originals on the air at this point. We were, I think, very excited about the opportunity in South Asia and India. We've got a great management team in Rohit and group on the ground there, which I think has really been our difference in our strategy is we've got great folks on the ground. And if it wasn't for the pandemic, I think we would have had probably 2 or 3 originals on air by now versus just launching one this coming week.
So in terms of investment and content, what is the strategy and for India specifically and other South Asian countries?
Well, overall, I guess globally, I can say the strategy is really to have a premium, adult, very edgy service that really has big originals supported by really big movies. And then supported locally by some local productions that are local stories, but can play globally. So we've got original productions, obviously, with Rohit in India that we think we can bring to the US, we can bring into Europe, We've got local production coming out of Madrid that we think we can bring to the US and LATAM. We have local production in LATAM that we can bring to the US and into Europe and into India. And so the idea is to have big global originals supported by movies, but then local stories that can actually play global as well.
Right, right. And how are you planning to expand across Asia?
So the expansion is happening across, I think, every dimension, whether you look at just our footprint on geographies. We have in the last 12 months launched in 8 markets in this part of the world already. Philippines goes live in the next quarter, so that takes us to 9. Hope, my guess is by end of next year we should be in 12 to 15 countries. So we are aggressively rolling out. Same with partners. We're great fans of working with partners that makes the reach and the access for consumers easier and relevant and sort of more related sort of allied partners. So
Right.
we've in a very short span, we probably have 8-10 big partners in this region. And same with content. I spoke about just the number of premieres we've done. I think one of the things streaming has allowed is really break the barriers of geography, language, culture, right? Finding suddenly everybody in India is watching French content and Korean, and so is the case all over the world, right?
True.
So I think we have some phenomenal originals coming out of what we're doing in US, what we're doing in UK, in Spain. We're doing about 8-10 originals here. And that, when you look at in totality, between sort of our 50-60 Hollywood global premieres and 8-10 local high production value, becomes a fairly substantial offering for the consumers, matched by very, very few premium networks in this part of the world.
So it's been a year Lionsgate plays functional in India. So you already talked about how the response is good. So in terms of it being a fairly new channel, so do you think it's doing really well, and is it matching your expectations?
From the global corporate perspective, I think it's exceeding our expectations. Again, like I said, I think Rohit and team have done a phenomenal job in a very tough environment, not only launching big titles, launching markets, launching partners, and getting originals built. And so we couldn't be happier with what the progress we've made in that part of the world.
So in terms of content, how have you strategized your ratio of Indian and Western content?
First of all, and let me, this is an important question. I think if we take a step back, let's look at the positioning of our platform globally, which is rather unique compared to some of the large streamers, because a lot of them are sort of becoming family networks, or in the traditional sense, the large broadcasters that we see, right? Because they typically cater to every age group, right? And that's their target. That's the way their content lineup is built up. We are worldwide very, very sort of targeted, very razor sharp in terms of reaching out to young and mature adult audiences, right? If you look at the data in the last 1 year, almost 70% of our audiences come between 20 to 35. So that probably resonates with our viewing pattern all over the world. So we are about that. We are a lot about contemporary, urban, sort of global content. So in that sense, I think there is a certain brand personality and the content personality that we have, which is very razor sharp.
Right.
And if you look at that in conjunction with the amount of investment that Jeff allows all of us at a global level for that specific audience, it becomes a fairly sizable content offering.
Right.
And in terms of split, again, like I said, people are watching content in every language today, but we typically try and see, we probably have like a 70-30, 65-35 kind of split between, call it global and local content. But we are finding language more and more is becoming less of a split. What's more important is we continue to provide premium content, which is subscription led. We are not an AVOD engine anywhere in the world, right? So I think some of that becomes more relevant for us. But I'd let Jeff speak about. I think there's a certain identity we've sort of created all over the world. We've got 30 million plus subscribers on this worldwide now. it has a certain scale and size not been matched by many.
Yeah, look, we've got, I think, these great big originals that should play anywhere in the world. We've got, Shining Vale, which is a Sharon Horgan half hour, which leads with Courtney Cox and Greg Kinnear and Mira Sorvano, which we think is a genre bending show that could play anywhere in the world. We'll follow that with a Julia Roberts and Sean Penn show called Gaslit, which is a very unique look at a moment in American history. And then we have this genre that I like to call Great Women of History, or some of my colleagues call it Queens of Infamy, where we've got, the Serpent Queen, which is the Catherine de Medici story out of France, which is a global story. Becoming Elizabeth, which is Elizabeth 15 coming into power when her father dies in the fight between her sister and her brother at that point. And then we've got the Dangerous Liaisons prequel, where they are 18, they fall in love in the French court. You couple that with, the show that we're talking about here, which is a casual remake that is, again, about relationships and family, which are kind of universal themes that no matter what the language and where we shoot it can actually play very well in the world. And so I think we've taken some of those consistent storylines and based them in different parts of the world. But I think audiences all over the world, whether it's based in India or based in Spain or even in Argentina, can enjoy that story and language. And so we're excited about what we're doing with the slate, that coupled with all the Lionsgate movies that are coming. We think we're very well positioned to be very successful all over the world.
That's an interesting lineup, and I can't wait to watch all of that. So I would also like to ask you, in terms of international content, what are are there any tie-ups with Hollywood studios and franchisees that we can look forward to in the pipeline?
Well, look, I think the first one and the biggest one is The Continental, which is the John Wick prequel story that we've got coming on Stars. It's a look at how the hotel in the John Wick franchise became the Continental in 1975 New York City. And it's a phenomenal kind of 3-night special experience that we've got coming. We've got ties up with every studio in Hollywood. Shining Vale that I talked about is with Warner, Gaslit's with NBC and Universal. And then we've got, Serpent Queen with 3 Arts, which is part of Lionsgate. And so and then obviously in Madrid, we've got ties up, with Bamboo, which is a huge production company there that's done some of the biggest hits. We've got 2 or 3 shows with Sony all over the world, and a few out of LATAM. So we're in bed with almost every Hollywood studio. Again, ultimately, it's about finding great content that fits that narrative that we just talked about, with big stars that we can put on, whether it's in India or Indonesia or Japan or Korea, or Spain or even in the US. And so, we look for the best of the best, no matter whether it's Lionsgate, which was our first home, obviously, but then we'll go outside into the studio system and find other hits there as well.
And so, Mr. Rohit, I would like to ask you, what are your plans for Indian originals? And are you looking forward to collaborate with any Indian directors or production houses to bring any originals out?
We have a huge plan around that. Our first original, by the way, comes out in 3 days.
Right.
And again, we're working with, exactly in the way Jeff talks about, we're working with best of the talent. Our first original is directed by Kunal Kohli. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the promos and the trailers.
I did. Yes.
And that probably speaks a lot about just the kind of brand and the content we want to do. It's very fresh. It's, in a country of our sort of, cultural diversity, we hardly have any content around siblings. I think you ask anybody, we all probably just know one song, which is 50 years old.
Right.
So in that sense, this is great. Our second series comes out, probably sometime around Feb, March. That's directed by Akash Khurana. Akash has done some, great content in the past, both in terms of movies and shows. So we have an exciting lineup of, Indian content for next year. And like Jeff mentioned, if it wasn't for COVID delays, we probably would have had few more already this year. But you'll see a lot more interesting lineup next year.
So would you also be producing, making movies, originals movies?
We're contemplating on that.
Web series?
We are contemplating on that. We do understand that, I think while series still gets us the highest sort of consumption and viewership, and by the way, in the last 1 year, our average viewership that we're getting is about 90 minutes per day. I'd like to believe that's probably amongst the best in class. And a lot of it is thanks to just the binge viewing population we've become on series. But we certainly look at again, movies in the mix. But yeah, I mean, it's been a great run so far.
So talking about Hiccups and Hookups, which is your first originals in India, and it's about to come also. So it's got a very refreshing storyline. As you just mentioned, we only have one song in India for brother-sister relationship, and we constantly go back and play it. So this is a very refreshing take on it, brother-sister relationship. And it's something you see only in American sitcoms. Like in Friends, we had Monica and Ross. So, can we look forward to more such refreshing stories, which we haven't seen much, or the Indian directors are experimenting a lot with content now. So, are we likely to see any more refreshing takes on relationships?
Well, hopefully, every series that we do, our attempt is to do something that's fresh, that's like I think Jeff and John very rightly put, that's provocative, that's edgy. There are takes that have not been sort of done before. The intent is to do that. And again, like I said, premium content for a certain age group of audience. And really the intent is to do global stories. Today, Indian audience, living in Mumbai, Delhi, Pune as global as somebody living in London, right?
Right.
And there's no reason we shouldn't be doing those stories. So certainly, and you see the same in again a second show that comes out next quarter. And the idea is to do different genres. You'll see a whole range of genres. I think there's also a little bit of fatigue around just crime and dark content in India. The other
Right.
intent is also to do something that's a little fresh, a little less darker than what sort of, and sort of, I think in post-COVID, people could do with a little more fresh and sort of, positive content. So, all of that goes into the mix in terms of the way content team thinks about it.
So, what about regional content? Are you also open to exploring more regional content as in other languages? And are we likely to see anything soon?
On regional content, the way we are approaching is slightly different. We're not focusing on originals in the near future. Again, we're only 1 year old. We are very happy with the journey that we've taken. Remember, most of the streamers, when they launch in the first year, they probably did, I think in the first 2 years, they probably did 2 or 3 originals. So in that sense, we're fairly happy with the progress that's done. But what we're certainly doing is, on our service, you'll find a lot of regional library content. So that's certainly there. A lot of our Hollywood content is dubbed into regional languages. We're finding phenomenal consumption of great, big Hollywood, large production value movies and series in, dubbed languages. And even on our originals. So, for example, Hiccup and Hookup, that goes live in 5 languages. So, we're finding tremendous consumption of just premium content if it's available in their local language. So we're doing all of that in the mix to sort of cater to the regional market.
All right. So in September this year, Amazon had announced partnership with, I think, 8 streaming services and to expand their library, and Lionsgate was one of that. So what kind of partnership with Amazon, with other OTT platforms are you planning?
I'll let Jeff sort of give a view on that. We have a great partnership with what you're referring is to Amazon channels. And we have something similar with Apple and a couple of places. I'll let Jeff speak about that.
Yeah, look, we're as a wholesale business, as Rohit talked about, our content is a little more provocative and edgy, and we're not as broad. We're not trying to serve the entire family, so we're really viewed as an additional service or a complementary service to those big broad services. And so our view is we should be partners with all of them, whether it's Amazon, whether it's our partnership with Apple. Eventually, I think there'll be a partnership with Google, but also our local partners that you see across India. And so wherever the consumer has that primary relationship, we want to be a complementary partner too. And so the consumer can get the service. And so you'll see us continue doing more and more of those deals where we can be viewed by wherever the core relationship in the home is.
Right. So any upcoming partnerships with other OTT platforms as of now in India?
No, Ria, I think at this point we have it with Apple and Amazon. Those are the only two who've also taken a sort of a little bit more marketplace kind of approach. But look, anything that leads to convenience for consumer, uh, anything that leads into combination of allied services, we're always open to that, right? Again, a large part of our partnerships is telcos. We've seen world over data and video are very, very directly correlated, right? And we work with telcos to provide data and video bundles together. In that sense, especially in this part of the world where distribution is so fragmented, we are in general great fans of collaborations, which makes it easier to reach consumer for him to view content, so that we are very open about.
Right. So talking about OTT platforms, a dozen OTT platforms have come live in India in the last 2 years, and Amazon and Disney Hotstar and Netflix being the primary players. So how do you see them as competitors? And do you think the Indian market is becoming very competitive when it comes to OTT platforms? And how are you planning to get through it?
Is Indian market becoming competitive? I mean, it always was very competitive. It's it is amongst probably one of the most open markets in that sense. But I think the real and this is a question that often gets debated. Our view is that that question has a bias in assuming winner takes all, right? Remember, in a market of this size, where we are forecasting by 2025 we'll probably have 200 million SWOT subs, which by the way means we would have probably by 25 surpassed television. Yes, there'll obviously be a large market for the large streamers, but in a market of this size, it all comes down to really what are you trying to target? What's your ambition? Like I said, if I'm trying to target a young and adult audience base, my content lineup is accordingly. My investments are proportionate to that. My ambitions are also proportionate to that, right? And I think I saw one of the interviews. Jeff put it very nicely. I mean, for some of these global streamers, their ambition or their break evens or their business model makes sense probably at 300, 400 million subs worldwide.
Right.
We for us maybe it's more like 75 to 100 million subs. So I think that really depends on what are how are we sort of looking at the market, what are we targeting. We certainly believe there's a tremendous audience for the kind of content that we're doing for the age group that we're trying to target. Like I said, there's still very little premium content being produced in the market.
Right.
I mean, if you think about it, Ria, at this point, we probably make about what I think maybe 75 to 100 shows in a year. And when you look at premium content, that's probably 15 to 20 shows, give or take. For a market of this size, that's really literally just scratching the surface still. In that sense, I think there's tremendous room for more players like us to come in and produce premium content.
Yeah, and I would also add that if you look at the originals plus the Western movies, and at the price point that we've priced the product, it makes us a very, very compelling add-on to all those broad-based services, and that's kind of the lane we're trying to play in.
All right. So I would like to ask you about your subscription cost. So it only costs rupees 499 in India annually, I think. So why is it so cheap? And will the attractive pricing add more customers? And is it is it because Lionsgate has just launched in India?
So, Reeb, that's a great question, and I feel in part you answered that. I think in the first 2-3 years, we believe this 20 to 25. The next 4-5 years are really about just growth and people getting used to building viewing habits on streaming, right? If you look at the last 12 months, the market size in India, as per our estimate, has gone up from probably 15 million to 50 million in the last 12 to 18 months alone, right? At this point, we are looking at the next 2-3 years. Again, this is a long-term investment play. Streaming by investment appetite is never for weak-hearted, right? In that sense, we understand and appreciate the long-term horizon it requires of investment. We're happy to look at the next few years as largely the investment phase to build consumer habit, to reach out to wider audience, to make sure, like I said, Hollywood content is getting watched by 1,000 cities. Hopefully, take that to 2,500 cities with originals coming in. So, in that sense, this period is like that. And I see the same philosophy being followed by all our peer group as well. I mean, if you look at most services, I think in the last 12 months, a lot of them have sort of taken the pricing a little more down to make it easier for consumers in the market to sort of lap up to the service.
Right.
And I think ARPUs will come gradually. At this point, really, I'd like to believe common goal for everybody is to take this 50 million to 200 million.
So for now, we can enjoy Lionsgate at this amount, and you might revise later, down a few years, maybe.
Again, at this point, we're very focused on here and now. So for now, absolutely, you should go on, download, subscribe, and enjoy.
All right. And so my last question to you would be, as an OTT platform, how do you define the taste of Indian viewers?
Well, that's a great question. I think, I think there are some themes that we always find true in India. There's always a little more lap up for thrillers and action. And it's interesting when we look at other parts of Southeast Asia, we find in some way like Indonesia finds a little more lap up for romance. Philippines find a little more lap up for horror and comedy. So in that sense, India has always been a little high on action and thrillers.
I think India loves romance too. We are the stereotypical watchers of romance.
But I think the more important part we're finding is, till the time it's really premium, global, good quality content, people are lapping it up irrespective of language. And to me, in the last sort of 1 to 2 years, that's been the biggest take. I think the number of languages each of us are watching today. I personally would have watched maybe content across 7-8 languages in the last 1 year. I don't think I watched that many languages in my whole of my life so far.
Exactly.
So I think there's never been a better time to be a consumer. With all this great content being available to us, we're finding the latent demand was just untapped so far.
Right. So that would be it from my side. And I would like to thank you both for joining us today for this session. And yeah, all the best to you. And I hope we see much more nice content from Lionsgate.
Thanks for the time. It's great to meet you.
Thank you.